Well, once again, greetings YouTube, and on this week's podcast movie review, we are looking at the new Guy Pearce film, Lockout, which, after just getting back from seeing it, I must highly recommend if you are into that kind of 90s style action movie. Or I should say late 80s, 90s style action movie. You know the ones I'm talking about. The ones where they for some reason decide to set it in the future so they can have some cool little elements and such. But other than that, everything's pretty much exactly like the present. In fact, in some elements, you kind of wonder why they bothered setting it in the future. This one at least avoids that because the ideal is you have a prison in space. But if you, something along the lines of The Sixth Day, or even to some degree, The Running Man, Total Recall. If you haven't just picked up by those three movies, I'm talking a lot about Arnold Schwarzenegger films, and this really does feel like an old school Schwarzenegger film. It's got this without Arnold, but with a fairly decent replacement or supplement, shall we say, to Arnold here in Guy Pearce. I love that they have this type of as old school action character. He's back. They're back somehow. Guy Pearce, thank you. Thank you for bringing back the old school action hero. It's very, how should I put it, what I mean by this kind of old school action hero? Well, I'll just describe Guy Pearce's character Snow here. He jokes around. You know, he's constantly making wisecracks about stuff. He's got a very, I don't want to say blasé because that sounds a little too depressing. He's having fun with himself. He's got a bit of an anti-authority thing in it, but he still knows what to do. He does what's right, but he's like, he can see that he's in ridiculous situations, so why should he treat it seriously? Type of a guy. You know, he's fun. He's committed. He knows what he's gonna do. He's gonna do it. He's going to have fun while he's going to do it. He's going to be entertaining while he does it. You know, he's basically the antithesis of a Final Fantasy protagonist. That's the better way to put it. He's a hell of an enjoyable character, constantly doing the wisecracks. You never see that nowadays in a modern action film. Never. They treat it way too serious, and this is a film that knows it has a ridiculous premise. Its characters knows it's ridiculous. They know it's having fun. I don't want to say that let me rephrase it. Reiterate that. I don't want to say though that this is a throwback film. I have a feeling this came out very natural. Just this type of, they just wanted to make this style of movie again. You know, it's also a '90s kind of style film, so it's not like, I say it's a '90s style film, but it doesn't feel like it's purposely having throwbacks. Or it's just purposely trying to be referential. It doesn't feel like, you know, what The Expendables has kind of tried to do, or how some other films have tried to be like, hey, it's like the 80s. This film just kind of is, and it just happens to coincide with that style. Which, hey, hopefully it's coming back, because in a lot of ways, I think we need it. I'm getting a little sick and tired of the overly serious action films. Give us the good old-fashioned fun stuff again. That's not to say this movie's perfect, and there's plenty of little things I'm gonna nitpick the hell out of. Like, this is probably internet reviewers, you know, like I'm talking like Spoonie or Cinema Stop style internet review. Very fun to have because there's a lot of stuff you can make fun of with this. But at the same time, it knows what type of movie it is. So what should I get into? Oh, we talked about Guy Pearce, and I'm actually happy to see Guy Pearce doing a film like this because he's a really great actor, and I'm happy that he's somewhat expanding his role or his performances, because he's in a lot of really, you know, how should I put it, Oscar-worthy stuff. I mean, he's been in, yeah, did he win the Oscar? Well, regardless, that's the type of movies he does a lot of. You know, he was in The King's Speech. He was in Memento. How did I forget that for a second? He was in Two Brothers. Oh yeah, he was in Two Brothers. So he does a lot of these, but you can kind of tell he was having fun with this, and I'm glad to see him being in more mainstream films, because he really is an actor that can do that. You know, he's going to be in Prometheus, but it looks like it's going to be a small role in Prometheus. But he seems like he really can pull off being really the action star. He certainly, if this was his deal that he wanted to expand his portfolio and get a little bit into action films, he passed with flying colors. The rest of the cast is fairly unknowns. Well, with the big exception, of course, of, I can never pronounce his name right, Peter Stormare. He always, generally he plays the Russian guy in a movie, even though I believe he's actually Swedish. But he's that guy who always plays that kind of crazy character. He's been in God knows how many movies. So you can give space stuff. He was the Russian in Armageddon. There we go. There's a good tangent for you. Don't hold that against him that he was in a Michael Bay movie, though. He's actually a great actor. He's in there. He's about the only other person that's recognizable. I love he plays. I'm vague. I think it's stated him as being the head of the Secret Service. Although he does a lot of spy stuff for the head of the Secret Service, Really, if you're the head of the Secret Service, it's more of an administrative position, but he's kind of in there, like, he's doing fucking surveillance at the beginning, like, makes the accusation that he sees our main character, Guy Pearce's character, Snow, shoot another agent, and actually gets it on video. I'll put it this way, he's not lying. I won't kind of spoil how they kind of revealed that. But he's not lying, but he's doing a lot of hands-on stuff. And he's like always all over, apparently, DC. Like, one movie is the Department of Defense. They probably shouldn't have made him head of Secret Service. This is like kind of the small nitpicky stuff that I get annoyed with in movies. His character, they probably should have just left him as a DHS agent. I mean, yeah, okay, maybe because it's taking place in 2079, that the Secret Service has expanded and become this all-encompassing organization. But they probably should have just done a slight change and just called him the head of DHS, which are at least a high-ranking DHS agent, because, well, Secret Service is part of the Department of Homeland Security anyway, so he would have had oversight when it comes to that stuff. And he would have had some dealings with intelligence. I was gonna say minor thing, but he plays a great character as basically the suit that is kind of an antagonist to the main hero, but he's not, someone you have to fight. These type of movies. They always have the one guy that's back in the command center. That's the suit. That's kind of against them doing the little crazy mission, or against something along those lines. And is an obstacle, but he's never an outright villain. He kind of has, normally the character normally has a few points. That's his character. What can I say? Whenever he's in a film, he plays a great role. He's enjoyable, especially when you meet him. He's interviewing Snow, and at first you think he's the one punching. They're kind of torturing him a bit. They're roughing him up every time he asks him a question. Snow gives a smart-ass remark. You see him punched, and at first you think it's him doing the interrogation, but he's actually sitting back and he's letting another some Marine punch him for him. And it doesn't sound too funny. It's the way they pull it off, and that really kind of shows. I just described something that doesn't sound that funny or that kind of entertaining, but the way you have these two type of decent actors, they can pull that off. Who else? The main cast will run around. Oh, apparently, well, I guess we'll talk about Maggie Grace, who hasn't done a whole lot. You'll probably most remember her from Taken, which, ironic, this is another Luc Besson production. He wrote part of the screenplay. He's credited as having the original idea. How much of that was the original deal? Just he thought of the characters? Was he wanted to do a 90s style action sci-fi film again? Or did he just go, I want to do a movie about a prison in space? I don't know. He didn't direct it, though. I should point that out. Two actually very newcomers, and I think you can tell that they were newcomers by the editing. I'm going to try to get in that in a little bit. But James Mather and Stephen St. Ledger. Stefan St. Ledger. I don't know if he's French or not. But I'll give. Speaking of which, I'm giving I've just noticed I'm seeing a lot of films recently that I like that are produced by non-North American actors and directors and producers. I think Hollywood has been that soaked that we're starting really to move. That's a side conversation, but I've just noticed that. I mean, I saw the Raid Redemption earlier this week. I'm seeing this, which is basically a French production, even though it's got, Hollywood backing. Who else? Oh, so we got Maggie Grace. She is the first daughter who is up on interviewing prisoners on the space station. They actually didn't do that bad of a job giving her a reason to be up there. She's basically doing what you would expect political families to do, some sort of, especially one that's a little older. And like right now we have the Obama kids who are still in school, so they don't go on little missions like this. I think Chelsea was even relatively young. But when you have older first families, they tend to actually go on like little or not tours, but proactive. She's up there to check out this new prison that is constructed in space. Now, I don't know why it was constructed in space, if this is what the setup is. They stick them up into space, and then they put them into stasis pods. Yeah, we haven't seen that before. Stone film! Yeah, we saw this in Demolition Man. This is why I don't get why it's in space. If you're just sticking them in the stasis pods and they can't do anything, then why do you need to stick them into space? They supposedly can't escape. And why just stick them in a regular prison? They can't go anywhere. They're in pods. Granted, something goes wrong here, but you could have planned this. Why did it have to be in space? Now they try to also hint at that they're kind of sticking them up there into space to do experiments for long-term space exploration. So they do somewhat try to address that, but she's gone up there to interview and see if there's any truth to these rumors that they are experimenting and messing up with some of the prisoners' minds. Which apparently it does. But that's her excuse for being up there, and while she's interviewing one of the prisoners, she is constantly hampered by the world's dumbest Secret Service agent. Oh, let me talk about this guy. Now, there's going to be some minor spoilers. I think by now you've gotten the impression that I recommend this film. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers, go see the film. Come back and you can hear the rest of it. Starting now. Alright, spoilers in effect. This guy, dumbest Secret Service agent ever. And yes, he is the only black guy in the film. Way to go, Hollywood. Really breaking down the stereotypes there. Alright, this guy, he goes up there, he's at first it's kind of clear that he's going to be the Secret Service agent. Okay. So, you go in there, they say, no, you're going to do the interview. They're in it. They take him. They're going to do the interview with the prisoners with the first daughter in some sort of interview room, and it's got the glass down. And I don't even know why they have Secret Service agents on his side of the glass. It's like two separate rooms with the glass. Apparently, it's supposed to be like bulletproof glass. And they say, okay, there's one thing. You can't take any firearms on your side of the glass. That's like standard. Most prisons, you can't even bring a firearm in the prison. Granted, Secret Service, okay, I get the idea. So he turns in his guns, he decides, I'm going to keep my backup gun on me. Dumbass. But that's one thing. Okay, he's got this little backup gun, which he's not supposed to have. Really, they could have just had some prison guards in there. But they go in there, and as he's doing the interview, of course, the prisoner, which is, of course, the craziest prisoner they can find, is going on and basically egging the guy on, talking about, oh, I'm gonna have dreams about you tonight, honey. Which, by the way, he's Irish. I don't know why the villains are Irish if it's an American prison. Unless Ireland, I guess, in this future has turned into, like, Ireland it was in the past. Regardless. And he continually gets egged on. For a Secret Service agent, this guy has got virtually no cool to him. I thought it was like how one of the things the Secret Service is supposed to look for in an agent. Yeah, it gets to the point where he's like starting to roughhouse the guy, and even the fucking first daughter is there going like, calm down, like, he's a prisoner. I was expecting this. It's hilarious. So he gets to this point, and not even the wardens who are supposed to be monitoring this are doing anything. They're just like, I guess we'll just let him rough him up. Even though that's what they said the whole point of the prison was, is it was a prison that there's no abuse by guards, because they're all in stasis. Anyway, so he starts roughing him up, and of course the guy grabs the gun that he was hiding, and he shoots that guy in the leg. And then kills the other Secret Service agent. Normally, okay, it's set up, it's safe. And he somehow shoots, though, another thing in the room that causes an explosion, breaking the glass, allowing him to kill the other two guards. Not very well explained how that happened, because the idea was kind of like it's supposed to be bulletproof glass. I don't know. But that's what he does for now. So he causes this entire thing. This guy gets out, and he somehow wanders into the control room for the entire facility, which is monitored with one technician. No guards. I don't get that. That was a little too easy. He somehow gets in there, he convinces the technician to release all the prisoners at once. You figure there would have been some overrides, maybe make it take a little while for that to happen. I know. So basically, this one dumbass causes this entire incident. But he's not done yet. No. Agent Dumbass here has got a few more things to cause problems with. Eventually, they break loose from the prisoners, him and the first daughter, and they actually run into Snow, the main character, who's was sent up there. We get the whole point. You've seen the commercials. And lo and behold, what do? Is even though Snow is obviously not wearing a prison uniform, in fact, he's kind of dressed a little bit like a guard. He's not wearing a guard's uniform, no, but he's obviously not a prisoner. Neither of them, they don't even have the excuse that, well, if he was a prison guard, I know all the prison guards, so I don't see this guy, I'm just going to hit him in the head. No. They immediately assume he is another criminal, and they knock him out with a fire extinguisher. And then they hide into this little room that's supposed to be, like, unbreakable, and he decides to pull out his gun and shoot the lock, which causes the oxygen in the room to let out. So he causes yet another incident where he's basically put the Secret Service's daughter, in complete danger, ruin the entire escape. They were basically free. He puts them into a small confined area where they can easily be found, and then causes an incident where and then by shooting the lock, basically killing them, locking them into a room that's going to lose all its oxygen. Lo and behold, the prisoners find exactly where it was that they locked themselves into, and basically make a technician open the door. Luckily, Guy Pearce Snow comes in, saves her, gets her out of there right before they open the door. But this is even better. Because they're running low on oxygen, he decides to shoot himself, even though he knows the prisoners are starting to open up the door. And if he had not shot himself, they would have just entered the door and taken her. Anyway, he is a horrible guard. He's a horrible Secret Service agent. I had to talk about that guy. I'm sorry. I kind of went on. He's not even that major of a character, and I've gone on for now almost 20 minutes. What else? In this movie, there is what they call low orbit precinct police. Low orbit. What was the acronym? Yeah, low orbit police district. It's a space station with cops on it. I don't know why. This isn't like that type of a future where there's huge space traffic. It looks like it's like there might be some commercial space travel and some military usage. I don't know why they need a police. Again, this is another thing. They could have just said it was a military station or a security station or something along those lines. Or they could have just made it mission control. There's no reason to actually have that in space other than to say they're in space. They really could have kept it as a mission control. Oh well. since I'm kind of right at the point where Snow finally meets the first daughter, he treats her like shit, and it is enjoyable because she is a horrible character too. But this is what's good about this movie. They have these really annoying characters that you will see in films like this, but they know how to treat them, and they treat them like shit, and you're happy to see it. Basically, Maggie Grace, in a lot of ways, is playing somewhat the same character she played in Taken, only we get to see people treating her like crap. Because there's a lot of shit she didn't take, and we're like, you had this coming. No, don't take me like I'm serious. Like, if you do something like try to follow a band in Europe, you deserve to get abducted by sex predators. No, I'm treating it as movie characters. The same way as if you go to see, Friday the 13th, you want to see the teenagers get killed. That type of a thing. Anyway, he treats her like shit. I love it. At one point, he forcibly cuts off her hair, and dyes her hair, and dyes her hair with like crap he found in like a toilet. I'm not even kidding. There, he says he made this homemade dye, and he says outright that he found some of the stuff in the toilet. Drags her around, constantly insults her, and it's enjoyable because her character is not they definitely make her to be the overly idealistic, to the point where this is a great part where they go, okay, if they start killing hostages, and go, if you don't show up, we're gonna continue to kill hostages. So she goes, even though Snow's there, going, don't say where you are. She goes, okay, I'm on the 3rd floor. Like, they previously had talked about her making a sacrifice when it really counts. And so what do? They show that was a completely stupid move, because then the psycho that's running things turns around, shoots the remaining hostages, and sends everyone down to get him. And so she basically had everybody killed. Speaking of which, there's this weird thing. They somewhat try to make it where there's the one really crazy guy, and the one guy that has everything put together. Now, it turns out they make the reveal being that they're brothers, even though they're the only 2 Irish guys on the prison. So it kind of does. There must be some sort of connection. But the one guy is just so fucking insane. It's like the Punisher Warzone again, where it's like, okay, he might be your brother, but dude, put him in a straitjacket, tie him up. Do something. Don't let him run around, because he might, stab you, which lo and behold happens. Which then results in our final climax, which is simultaneous. Eventually the orbit. I don't know why this thing isn't in constant automated geosynchronous orbit, but because a technician has been away from the controls for a couple hours, the thing starts to fall back to Earth. Kind of a design flaw there. In fact, it even takes out the old International Space Station. So they are then eventually forced to fly their fighter jets, their little space fighters, at it. And why they don't just stay from a distance and shoot missiles from like miles away in space, I don't know. Apparently they have to. The only way, now they really needed, I guess, to explain this in the movie. This is part of the problem with the film, is there's a lot of stuff that's done, but they really need to explain. They basically have to do a Return of the Jedi. They have to fly inside the center of the station. There's this big giant hole in the center of the station. Drop off a bomb in there, and fly back out before it detonates. And it's got like the station itself has guns, and you're just sitting there. It's a halfway decent space fighting scene, which we don't see nowadays. There's not that many space operas out there, so you don't see too many space battles. So ironically, if you want to see a space battle, go see this film, because there's an automated defense system on the prison, of course, even though it looks like there's nobody else out there, flying around in space. So they wind up losing all these guys, and you're kind of just going, why can't they just shoot a missile from very, very far away? Like, even we can do this today. If you had a big space station like that, you could fire a missile from the deck of a ship and hit it. Do what they did in this film. Today, The U.S. Navy has shot down a satellite from a ship. The Chinese have shot down a satellite, and that's a lot smaller of a target than this giant space station. So they really needed to make some sort of explanation that only they really needed to have some sort of officer come in and have Stormare's character just kind of going, well, the only way we can do this is to go straight. This is it. Everything else, it's got a defense system, but it's got a force shield. But our ships have a frequency that allow it to go through, or something along those lines. They need to explain that, because you're kind of thinking there like, why do they have to get so close to the space station and fly around? And if that's the case, why don't they just go straight for the underbelly from the get-go? I don't know. But that kind of gets a little bit into the overall feel. The movie is, I say this a lot with films, but it's got some pacing issues in that it's very fast moving into the next thing, and it doesn't let us any time to breathe or adjust. And they need to explain more stuff on how the world works. In that, we can definitely see the amateurnish, not amateurnish, but the inexperience of Stephen St. Ledger and James Mather, because this is their real first major production. And you can see their inexperience, because they also wrote the screenplay, so they have very little excuse for, they can't just say, well, I wasn't given those scenes in the screenplay. Well, you should have wrote them. They're great with the character. These guys know how to write a character, and assuming that Luc Besson wasn't the one that really thought of it, how to do the character. But when it comes to the plot elements, they really need to flesh it out. Like you saw in Taken, everything was very well explained in Taken. It had less action scenes as a result. But you kind of, this is stuff you could have just added about 5 minutes total to the film with just having quick explanations on stuff. I mean, there's some stuff in sci-fi you don't have to explain. Like, they showed DC, and DC looks weird. Like, something had happened to DC, and it was rebuilt and such. Like, the White House is far under, like, the actual Oval Office is way underground. I'm assuming because they probably ran out of the budget to actually make a full Oval Office set. Really, I guarantee you there's somewhere in Hollywood, there's just a permanent Oval Office set that they rent out to, like, any studio that wants it. So there really shouldn't be an excuse not to have a normal Oval Office set. But they have, of course, the underground bunker office set. So it looks kind of weird and cheap. But like little stuff like that, you don't have to explain too much. You can let us, the audience, imagine it. But they really do need to explain a little bit more for the plot stuff, because there's a ton of plot holes. And I didn't even barely touch it. I just know I've gone now for almost 30 minutes. And before I leave, one thing, and this is one of the things I wanted to address at the beginning, but I forgot to. The big thing people are comparing this movie to is Escape from New York. If you see anybody compare this movie to Escape from New York, slap them. Prisoner sent in to get president's daughter. You know how many movies have kind of done that, where it's such a cliche that this thing is no way ripping off Escape from New York. It's ripping off Fortress 2 if it's ripping off anything. And if you're one of the 6 other people in the world that has seen Fortress 2, it was an okay movie. I like the first one better, though. But that has the space prison. If you're going to say anything, it's being ripped off, it's that. But, yeah. First of all, Snow is completely different from Snake Plissken. Plissken is way more brooding. Pierce is... I mean, they both have authority issues, but the way they address it is completely different. Snow is way more of a smartass. And he's a little bit more upbeat. And is more of a guy you'd actually kind of you would want to know a guy like that. Snake, you might enjoy his character, but in real life, you wouldn't want to fucking hang out with him. He'd get pissed off at you and punch you at some point. You like Snow. Snow strikes that balance quite well. And other than that, I mean, you're talking, yes, it's a prison you're being sent into, but, Escape from New York is all about the world that the prisoners created, and this film's, they're just prisoners that are rioting. So I would not compare the two. Like I said, if you're going to compare it to anything, compare it to Fortress 2. If that. Which is a good thing, because if I'm having a hard time saying exactly, I mean, there's a lot of elements this thing takes from previous movies. That's one thing, but overall, it's fairly original. Or maybe it's not super original. It's just that Hollywood is so unoriginal now that even movies like this appear to me to be original. It's fun, and that's kind of what I was saying earlier. I'm glad to see. It seems like you have to go outside of the U.S. Hollywood influence, and Canada. You are not excused from this. You are definitely fully integrated into the system at this point. Sorry, guys. But yeah, you have to go outside, and it looks like, lo and behold, that's what they're doing. So I'm happy. That's why I support this film. I had to choose between this and The Cabin in the Woods, and I'm much more of a sci-fi action guy than I am a horror person, even though I like both genres. Like, I'll be seeing The Raven probably next week. And this is the one I picked, and I fully support. You should definitely check this out. Unfortunately, I have a feeling Cabin in the Woods is going to beat this in the box office, though this will probably make its money back, because it is, about a $30 million production. So if it can make $30 million back, it'll make a profit then with overseas sales, which I'm sure this will be pushed heavy in Europe. And I'll be happy for it. Hopefully it'll be successful enough that we get some great action movies from other directors. Luc Besson, I trust this guy. I've loved his work from the Fifth Element, yes. Now he's doing producing. This is a great action director. You can saw in Taken that he can do stuff without having to do CGI. And yes, this is a sci-fi film, so I give it a little bit of an excuse, but there's some stuff in here that other directors would try to do CGI that you could tell that they actually filmed live action. There is a lot of CGI and a lot of poor CGI too in this, but that's something for another day, because I just looked at the timer and I've now gone on for over a half hour on this. So I suggest, yes, go see this film. I know I am missing out on several things I could have talked about this movie. But is there anything I really, really desperately need to cover? I don't think so. Poor CGI, great characters, fun action, bad pacing, needs explanation. No, I think that's about it. So, signing off for now, guys. Tell me what you guys think. If you've seen this movie, tell me. I'm sorry it's gone on a little long, but that is kind of the point of these reviews, is to do something that is... nobody complain if the review is long, guys. That's the purpose of this particular YouTube channel, is to do long stuff, not short 5-minute reviews. That's my niche, okay? Signing off for now. See you guys later.